Okay, so I'm going to call this practice Movement Mastery Yoga Fusion because I'm going to do the beginning part of the practice. We'll start with some breathing in Makrasana. We're going to then do a little bit of movement of the legs and hips with sort of that therapeutic lens. And then we'll come up to stand and do some traditional poses. We'll also end on the floor doing a couple of poses and shavasana. You'll need a set of blocks for this practice. So go ahead and we're going to start the practice lying down on our stomach. And we have done the makarasana with weight on the back, but for this particular practice, we're just gonna establish the breath here. So find your way onto your belly, and you might see that as I settle in, I always kind of stretch my front body and then place it back down onto the floor. And my legs are just parting a little bit about the width of my mat. And then as you arrive here in this position or in this pose called Makrasana Crocodile, just start to notice your breathing. You're just meeting yourself where you're at, taking in some qualities of the breath, noticing a little bit about the physical body as well, where there's any strain or tightness. As well as just noticing the mind. Is it busy or is the mind scattered? Is it more centered? Just kind of notice what you're noticing about it. And then drop your awareness to the navel center and start to breathe in a little bit deeper, feeling the belly press into the floor. And you could even work into that part of the breath as the diaphragm lifts, that you're expanding out. And you might even notice there's some quivering at the top of that in breath. That's okay. Just work into that space. And then we're going to take 6 more full breaths. So a 1 breath is an inhale, exhale. Now you may have already reached 6 breaths. And if that's the case, just take another round or 2. Okay, and then just slowly go back to just involuntary breathing. So now you're just observing the breath again. And then just gently with that, keeping that breath in mind, we're going to move onto your back. And then once you arrive there, take your right hand and place it on the abdomen so that your thumb is just lined up with the base of the sternum and your pinky finger rests on the navel. Take your left hand and just place it to the left of your sternum so it's resting on the heart. And then fill the belly again as you breathe in. That nice deep volume of breath again moving into the belly. So the belly presses into the palm. You can feel a movement, but there's less movement in the chest. Okay, so let's just complete one more full diaphragmatic breath. And then drop your arms to the side and then just go back to involuntary breathing, where you now become the observer of your body being breathed. Take a full body scan. Okay, so that's a beautiful way to start any day, any practice. And even later in the day, if you've needing to just kind of down regulate the body a little bit. So we're going to come up now, and I failed to mention that we needed a therapy ball today. So you just pause the video to go grab yours. I'll be here still doing this when you get back. So tennis ball or a massage ball. And we're going to take this and we're going to actually just use it on our hip. So I'm going to just put a little bit of weight into my hands and roll on my hip and into my glute and just use this as a tool just to inform you as to where you might feel a little bit of tightness or tension. While I'm up, I'm going to show you an alternative to lying down. So you'd have to come up to the wall and then place the ball on the wall at the hip height. And then you can actually just move around on the ball. So either of those is okay. This one's a little bit, when you're standing at the wall, you're obviously using your legs a little bit more because you need to bend your knees to roll the ball on the tissue, a muscle. On the floor, you have to put a little bit of weight into your arms. I think there's a little bit more you end up having a little bit more weight when you're doing the version that I'm doing right now. So you could lean into the ball a little bit more because you're resting right on it and you have the floor as the support. Now, what I'd like you to consider is as you roll through that hip and in through all that muscle, you're going to find probably some areas that have a little bit of extra tension or tightness or sensation. And you can work into that area a little bit. But what I would recommend you do not do is put like a 10 out of 10 pressure on it. So keep the pressure at a level where you can feel and sense a little bit of extra sensation or tension, but you're working softly in and around that tissue. Okay, so now I'm going to just go to the other side. You can switch regardless if you're at the wall or on the floor. And this is just really good, other than a massage, which it is, it's also really good information to give yourself about what's kind of going on in the area that you're working on. So this is good for pre-workout, pre-walk. It would also be really good for post-workout, post-walk. And probably also noticing, as I am, that there's one side that is a little bit more sensation to it, let's say, than the other side. Okay, so we've probably done even amount of time on both sides. I'm going to put that off to the side, and then I'm going to come down onto the floor. We're going to start some work in the leg bones. So find your way onto the mat. And then as you get there, just do a little bit of hip movement away from hips, away from ribs, and then hips toward ribs. So just back and forth, just finding that spot in the spine that feels more neutral. Okay, and then once you feel comfortable there, just kind of bring your awareness to the top of the leg bones, feeding into the hip sockets. Drop the legs to the side and then bring them back up. So there's gravity that pulls the legs to the side, and then your inner thighs, adductors recruit to bring the knees back together. As well as you're doing this movement, just notice if anything else is happening through the upper chain of the body, as in, are you bracing, or if there's any movement of your jaw or tension throughout your face. Okay, and then we'll bring the feet back together, resting the arms down onto the mat. Now, what I'd like us to really consider now, so here we are, a whole body resting on the floor, but just dive down into just kind of seeing yourself as the skeleton. So from here now, we're gonna move into hip flexion. So you can leave the arms on the floor and just elevate the hips up, which brings the hips into flexion, and then back down. So just really consider the skeleton. So go down as deep as the skeleton. And we're just getting and improving movement of the hips relative to the ribs. And then what you will notice, we'll do a few more so that you can be aware of this, is that as you bring the hips into flexion, that your glutes automatically respond to that movement. And then we'll lower the hips back down. Okay, now I'm going to bring the arms up and shift the spine a little bit if it's shifted too much. Bring the arms up toward the ceiling, and you're looking at the top of your hands. And then find that neutral space again for your spine to hips to ribs. So the spine is more neutral. And then from there, now we're just starting to move the arm bones in the shoulder joints. So there's little or no movement in the ribs here, just because we're just moving the arms. And the arms don't need to go all the way to the floor. Okay, so then we'll bring the arms back up, straight out of the shoulder sockets. And now think about the arm bones where they're inserted into the shoulder joints. And from there, you're going to turn them. So you're moving them into internal rotation, which means that now your palms are facing each other. From there, we're just going to reach with the straight arms. We're going to reach toward the ceiling, which now we're bringing the attention to our shoulder blades. So think of the shoulder blades as triangles, and they're moving around your ribs. And as you reach up toward the ceiling, they're going into protraction, moving away from each other, and retraction as they come back down. Okay, so let's just do one more with all this granular movement. It's just so great to just kind of continue to improve movement throughout the body. Now we'll start to move the arms again back and forth like we did with little or no movement around the ribs. So you're just moving the arms now in the joints, but the arm is in a different orientation. You might notice some differences there. Okay, and then we'll bring the arms all the way down to meet the floor. Okay, and you can kind of shift the hips around again a little bit if they've shifted. We're going to bring the right leg up toward the ceiling, and then we're going to shoot that awareness down now again to the femur where it's feeding into the hip socket. And now you're going to do your movement of leg bone and hip socket, internal, external rotation. So the foot is not flexed and it's not pointed. So it's just kind of there on the end of your leg. And the reason that it's changing directions is because you're moving your leg bone. So just make sure that you're not flexing the foot and driving the movement from your foot. That's a bit of a compensation. So the more that we can start to repattern this leg movement in the hip socket, it's going to be so beneficial. Okay, let's bring that leg down. Okay, bring the left leg up, and then we'll start that side. So informative too, because as you're going through the body parts, like for me on this side, I'm noticing that I've got quite a bit of tension in my hamstring on this side, which was not present on the other side. It's just good information to have. All right, so now we're going to bring that foot back down and feel the feet now on the floor and bring the attention to the balls of the feet, bases of the baby toes, and the center of the heels. And now we're going to move into that hip extension again, which is bridge. And we're going to sweep the arms as well. So we're going to integrate a little bit of breath and movement. So now we'll breathe, coming up into hip extension as the arms sweep overhead. That's my in breath, and then coming down on the exhale. Breathe in and come up. And come on down on the exhale. Okay, so we'll go one more time. You can see kind of like piece by piece, we're going through the body parts. And then we're also integrating the breath and movement. So really love this type of work. All right, so from here now, we're going to start to move the hips relative to the ribs. So I'm going to extend my left leg out straight on the floor, and I'm going to extend my right leg straight up toward the ceiling. We want to have some awareness now through the upper part of the body as we bring the leg across. So I'm going to bring my arms out so that they're about the height of my shoulders and no higher. It can be a little bit lower, but just no higher. And then I'm going to bring my leg across the body. So my right hip comes up off the floor. So I'm getting hip rotation. But what I'm not doing is bringing the right shoulder up off the floor. So this is where you can find your range, because as you bring the leg across the body, you want to keep that opposite shoulder on the floor, but comfortably on the floor. So if as you bring the leg across the body, you got a bunch of pulling in this front shoulder, the deltoid, you want to back off a little bit so that you're not working into that space. Stretching our muscles is a good practice, but this particular movement is not stretching the shoulder. It's about moving the hips. So if we wanted to stretch the shoulder, we would find a different way to do that. So bring your leg back up and a couple of times just move in and out of it so you get your range. As well as you're doing it, if you're grimacing through the face, that is definitely an indicator you're going too far. And then come across the body again. Now let's just stay with the leg across the body. There might be a little bit of rotation of your lower part of your ribs, but basically your upper part of the body is resting comfortably on the floor. And then we'll bring the leg back up. And then bring the other leg up and straighten the right leg out and left leg up. Okay, so we didn't even have to change the upper body position. And now we'll start to move this left leg across. Okay, on this one, I'm going to stay. So I do feel some connection with my oblique muscles. Definitely feel some tightness to the back of my leg, which is understandable because I did do a leg workout yesterday. So depending on what your physical activities were the day before is going to probably be an indicator where you're going to feel sensations a little bit deeper. All right, so then we'll bring the leg back up and bring that foot back down onto the mat. And then from there, we can now shift over to all fours. So now we're going to have our blocks available at the top of the mat because they're going to come into play here pretty quick. So let's just come to the floor on our all fours. And this is a tricky one. So usually I teach exhale as you protract the shoulders and inhale as you retract. So now I'm going to exhale and retract and inhale and protract. Okay, try that one on for your brain. So what I really love about that is that it really shows how patterning is so ingrained into our brain. It's really hard to shift that pattern in. So just don't. You just don't think about it too much. All right, so from here, let's just move our sit bones back toward the heels in this stretch or baby pose, child pose. And then we'll work our way back up. And then we're going to take our blocks. And we'll use them as a little bit of support as we step the left leg forward. I'm going to bring this other mat underneath my knee so it's a little bit more cushioned. And then you're going to start to work in and out of this leg movement. So now if you think about this, we move the leg bone in the hip socket, and now we're basically rocking the hips on the legs. So again, I love this work for pre-workout and post-workout. You can insert it wherever you like. You could also obviously have this as an independent practice as we're doing here. Okay, so now if it feels good to lean into it and do a little bit of a hip flex stretch, then you can insert that here. You can keep moving. And then the next thing that we're going to move into is a little bit of leg movement again. So my left leg is still forward. I'm just changing direction so you can see. I'm bringing my hands to the inside of my foot. And then I'm starting to move the leg bone again. I'm going to just change my camera position a little bit. So as you're moving that leg bone in the hip socket, the result of that is that you move to the outer edge of your foot. Okay, so usually that can be directed or cued as roll to the outside edge of your foot. But really, we want to think about what's happening to the leg bone. Okay, so there we go. We can bring that leg back and take your time. We're going to grab our blocks again and we'll shift to the other side. So now we're bringing the right leg forward and leaning into it and back. I'm going to do a side view for you here. So you can see that for me, I have my toes curled into the floor, this back leg, but you could have that down on the floor too. So whichever way works better for you is fine. And then you can lean into it. So as you lean into it and you put a little bit of weight into the blocks, just don't dump all your weight into it and then have it be create tension through the shoulders. As well, you want to feel the rhythm of your breath. It's nice and easy and flowy. Okay, and then we'll go into the next one as we bring the hands into the inside edge of that foot and then start to notice the leg movement here, moving into rotation or abduction. Not actually sure what movement that is, but it's moving and grooving. All right, so from here now, you can even use the blocks as a helping point for this. I'm just going to actually step into that foot and come up to a wide leg forward fold. And you can bring your hands down onto the floor here and just do a gentle pulsing. Now I'm going to get a deep stretch up the back of my legs, which I actually don't mind. And then just move into that adductor a little bit on each of the legs by bending the right knee, feeling that sensation in the left adductor, and then move to the other side. Bend in the left and feeling that sensation in the right. And then just go back to the other side. Another one. And then bring yourself back to that center point. And then sweep your arms to the back or your hands to the back of your legs. I'm going to come back to this side. And then come up with a nice flat back. All the way up to standing. You're going to lose me here, but I'll change my camera position here in a moment. And then we're all the way up in standing position with a wide stance. Okay, and then from here, we're going to move into some side lateral stretching. So I'm going to turn my left leg bone in the hip socket, going into external rotation. And I'm going to turn my right leg bone in the hip socket with a little bit of internal rotation. So what I didn't do is I didn't contort my torso at all. It's basically still facing front. I just moved the leg bones. So now I'm going to bring my arms up in level, in line with the shoulders, breathe in. And then on an exhale, I'm going to bend the knee simultaneously, lean into that side and reaching the arm across. And then I'm going to inhale and come up. And same thing. So as you're exhaling, you're reaching, getting this nice long stretch through the right side of the body. Breathe in and breathe out. Okay, one more, and we're going to stay. Breathe in and breathe out. So now, as we move into this side bend, we're not going to dump all of our weight to this side. Just loosely hang that arm there so that you're actually asking the lower body to take more the brunt of the weight. And now we've gained a ton of access to the right side ribs, and you can breathe deeply into that side. So now keeping the knee bent this time, come up and extend your arms out straight and turn to look toward your right hand, palm facing up. We've moved ourselves into warrior two. Nice long line through the spine, so energy flows freely there. And then on an inhale, straighten that leg, release the arms down. And then let's just bring ourselves into a mountain pose. And we'll take a little bit of tension off the shoulders by bringing them up toward the ears, shrug, and then retract the shoulders and then drop them down to press them down. So here we elevate, here we retract, and here we depress. Okay. And then we'll go wide again. And then let's just change this around a little bit. We're going to turn the left leg bone first, internal rotation there, external rotation of the right leg bone. And we don't want to overly have like a posterior or anterior pelvic tilt here. So see if you can find some neutral ground there. And then we're going to move in and out. So we're going to breathe in here. And then we exhale, bend the knee, side bend, and reach off the waistline. And inhale, come up. And exhale. And breathe in, come up. And then this time we'll stay. So just think down into the lower part of the body, those 3 points of the bottoms of each of your feet. So your weight is nicely distributed between your legs. And now you've got this beautiful line here of energy where you can bring the flow of the breath into the left lung and into the rib cage on that side. Okay, so we keep the knees, the legs the same, and the arms come up. Turn so that your palms face up, which means that you're moving the arm bones in the shoulder joints. Feeling nice and steady. And you've got this nice long spine, feeling the movement of the energy through the spine. Okay, and then we'll inhale, straighten the leg and release the arms down. We're going to turn so that the leg bones head forward and then turn them a little bit into external rotation. We're going to bend the knees and we're going to inhale, come up and exhale. Inhale, come up, and exhale. And inhale, come up, and exhale. And then just come back up to standing and bring your legs back together in mountain pose. Just notice how you feel. Working through all of these movements, hips to ribs, ribs to hips. And the next thing that we're going to do is some movement of rotation in the ribs relative to the hips. So I'm going to do a side view here. And I would recommend having a block because we're going to do rotation in a wide leg. So move into wide leg. I'm going to grab my block to place here. So if you're a little bit more flexible through the backs of your legs and you don't get a rounded back by bringing your hand to the floor, then you don't need the block. Okay, the block is there just to kind of give you a little bit more space in the vertebrae as we go into the rotation. So I'm going to bring my hands to the back of the legs. I'm going to breathe in. And then on an exhale, I'm hinging forward. So now my hips are moving on my legs and I haven't rounded my back because I haven't really gone to the floor yet. The back round happens when you get a little bit deeper into the forward fold. But I'm going to have my block positioned here underneath my face. So you can see I haven't rounded my back. I'm going to bring my left hand there onto the block or the floor, whichever is more desirable or more effective. And from here, I'm going to reach the right arm forward. I'm going to soften the knees a little bit. Inhale as you look down. And then exhale, you're going to start to rotate open to the right with an exhalation. And then inhale, look down again. And then exhale to the right again. Okay, so one more time, we're going to do that. Reaching the arm forward, inhale. And then exhale into rotation. And then if you're able, you can keep the arms straight or you can bring it onto the sacrum. Inhale and then exhale, turn, but you're turning at the navel and the ribs are opening and rotating. And what you can do is insert at the end of your exhalation, just a light pause in the breath. And in that, in that little pause in the breath, you can maybe even find a little bit more space into the rotation. So now as you're in the static part of the pose, it's more about the breath. Okay. And then just bring your ribs around to face the floor. Sorry, there's some dust in the air. And then you can just kind of pulse again like we did before. If you feel like you would like to come up for a little breather, because we're going to go do the other side, come up. Take a nice breath. And now we'll do the other side. So inhale, forward fold on exhale. And I bring my hand to the block. So you can see that I'm creating length through my spine first, and then I can start the rotation. So I'm going to reach the arm forward, inhale, looking down, and then exhale, opening up to the left. And then breathing in, looking down. Soften the knees a little bit here. You want to keep your hips level, though. Okay, one more time. Look down, reach the arm. And then exhale, expand and open. Now, I'm going to stay in that rotation, either with the arm extended, but pay attention to what's going on in the shoulder. If it's feeling all kind of jammy and not good, then just bring the top of the hand onto the sacrum, soften that out, because we're really more about improving the rotation of the ribs here. So here I can really feel that retraction of the shoulder blade, the left one, as I go into that deeper rotation with the breath. So take a breath in, exhale, a little bit of rotation. You're feeling the navel pressing back. A little bit of a pause in the breath at the end of the rotation. If you like, that's optional. And just seeing if there's just a little bit more space in that breath hold. And then allow the body to come back around. And this feels so good. It's almost like kind of like a little bit of a cleansing for the internal organs. Let's breathe in and come all the way up. And then we'll make our way to the top of the mat. Feeling pretty good. Hitting on all body parts here. So just take a moment in your mountain pose to kind of like reestablish the breath. And then I'm going to bring my hands to the upper part of the back of the legs again. I'm going to take an inhale here. I'm going to fold forward on the exhale. You can soften the knees a little bit here as you go forward. And then I'm going to take myself back to downward dog. Now, downward dog is not always available for everybody. So for those of you that downward dog is not available for, just bring yourself down into an all fours position. From our all fours position or a downward dog, let me cue the all fours position first. So you're going to bring yourself into plank. So the people in downward dog, you can stay. And from the all fours position, extend a leg back, strong through that leg as you extend the other leg back, and you're formed the perfect plank. And our downward doggers, we're just going to actually start to move from dog. So now you start to just shift your joints on your shoulder, on your arms, to bring yourself into plank so your hips extend. And now we're all in our perfect planks. So you'll notice, regardless of how you got there, that the core, the abdomen, core muscles have responded to that shift in weight. And then from here, so if you want, there's options. You can drop to the knees and lower to the floor, or you could go right from plank, and you could even do a little bit of bracing here. Not a bad idea. Just kind of notice your core and then start to lower down to the floor, chaturanga. All the way to the floor. It's a little bit of strengthening work there. We're going to just have our legs at the distance they have landed at, and place your hands, the tops of your hands, on your back, lower back. Okay, so from here, we're just going to start to move a little bit into Shalabhasana. So bringing the chest up from the floor, exhaling back down. And breathe in. Exhale out. So come up into Shalabhasana. So bringing the chest up. Exhale, stay. And then breathe in again. So let the whole of the chest come back down. Now, you can either bring your hands and press yourself back into downward dog or into child's pose here. So just listen to the body as to what it is that you want. Mine's asking for child's pose, but yours might be asking for downward dog. Just take 2 breaths. Okay, great. So from here, we're just going to come up onto come out of downward dog, all fours, and then all meet just in hero's pose. We just get a little bit of a stretch on the tops of the feet. And then from there, we're going to turn around and lie down on our backs again. So even before we go into the next thing that we're going to do, and there's three variations that I'm going to suggest. We're going to do we're going to go back to our breathing. So this is going to be a supported inversion, very supported. So don't get all worked up. Before an inversion, we usually rest. So that's what we're going to do. And just so that you know, we'll probably need some props for this. So just have a couple of blocks, a blanket. There's also an option not to do inversion, just so you know. Okay, so now we're just going to come to lie down on our back. And you can have your legs straight or knees bent here, doesn't really matter. And then landmark again. So you have your left hand on the left side of the sternum on your chest, and your right hand on the abdomen, finger on the navel, and the thumb on the base of the sternum. And then you're just going to gently breathe into the belly while the chest stays still. Okay. So you might have now been thinking as you're breathing about this next pose and what you would like to do. So the variation that doesn't actually even bring you into inversion is just Baddha Konasana. And it's Supta Baddha Konasana because we're lying back. So you can stay where you are, just bring the soles of your feet together, let the legs drop to the side. Now they might need a little bit of support. So you can bring some blocks just kind of to the where the hip creases are. And then you can just be here. Let the arms flop out to the side and just enjoy this peacefulness. It's a beautiful pose. So for those of us that want to add a little bit onto this, next variation is to bring a block or a folded blanket or a bolster underneath our lower back. That feels really comfortable. Extend one leg up, followed by another leg up. And there's your modified and supported inversion. Okay, and then for those of us that would like to do a little bit of a deeper, it's a modified shoulder stand. So remember, there's never any tension on your neck in a shoulder stand. It actually is a shoulder stand. This is a variation of it. I'm going to extend the legs up. I'm going to just do a little bit of a shift so that my hands come to my back. My thumbs rest on the hip creases. But here, my weight is in my arms. So the top of my arms, my shoulders down toward the elbows. There's a little bit of flexion at my hips. I shouldn't be looking toward the camera. And my toes, I'm looking at them. But there is no weight in my cervical spine. That's my neck area. So if there is, just transition out and get that sorted out, or go back to the supported version of this. So good on your nervous system. Anytime you feel like you need to come out, especially if you're in the modified shoulder stand, then just come out of it and just stay for another 2 breaths in whichever variation you're in. Okay, and then we can start to work our way out. I'll lift my hips up and get that block out of the way. And then reposition with your knees bent. Okay, so just listen in to signals in the body. We've just come out of our little shoulder stand or variation thereof. And just notice if there's anything in particular that your body's craving. A good counterpose to this would be to move yourself up into bridge. And then lower yourself down. And then you can take your time now just to do your last little bit of movement that might support the practice that we've just done in your body. And then extend your legs out straight. You can support your head if you like, or if there's any grippiness in your lower back, you could also put something underneath your knees. We're going to rest for 2 minutes, and we're just going to bring the awareness to the body being breathed, but we're going to focus on the breath at the belly. We're not doing that deep diaphragmatic breath. We're just sort of watching the breathing now as we just start to shut down from movement to stillness. Nowhere to be, nothing to do in this moment. Just being with what is. So you can continue to stay in your relaxation if you want it a little bit longer, which wouldn't be a bad idea. And if you're ready to move out, then you can just start to make some movement and roll to your side, finishing up in a cross-legged seat. So I always recommend to be seated on something for cross-legged seat. And as you get there, you can just close your eyes. You just take it all in for a moment. So just reflect on the practice and how the body came to the mat, what it felt like, and what it feels like now after you've moved and breathed and observed. And we'll bring the hands together, the heart. Namaste.